to another episode of That's Some Crazy Shit with Kelly and James. Moi is Kelly and my co-host is Mr. James.
That's me. I'm Mr. James, listeners.
Mr. James, what's happening?
Not nothing, just hanging out, enjoying some good weather, enjoying the inside, the outside, both sides.
All sides.
All sides.
The upsides and the downsides.
Yeah.
So James, today on our podcast, we have a guest. Who
do we have, my friend?
You know, his name is JJ Johnson Jr. And the nice thing about JJ is he is a fellow podcaster. We're actually starting to collaborate with other podcasts, and he's our first one. And he has a podcast called Southern Demonology. And he talks about...
let me guess. Demons.
You are ding, 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 ding. Demons. He's got a master's in theology from Harvard Divinity School. He also has a postmodern philosophy and systematic theology from Hampden-Sydney College. He's more on the academic side, but he's got a lot of information. Man, he knows a lot about this stuff we just don't know about, stuff that we just say, that's crazy shit.
It is. And you know what I like is those credentials he's bringing with them.
Yeah. So I say we just get right to it.
Well, let's do it.
All right. Welcome to our podcast. JJ Johnson Jr., fellow podcaster of Southern Demonology podcast.
Okay, so today, listeners, we have JJ from Southern Demonology. He has a podcast also. We have lots of questions about this subject, JJ. So the first question I have is about your logo. What is that writing and what does it mean?
So I actually have two versions of the logo now. The previous one just featured a black demonic head on a red field, and the text along the top is Nidon Kisar, which in Hebrew simply translates to Nero Caesar. And most people don't realize that in the book of Revelation, most people are familiar with the number of the beast, 666, but it's actually not a number that it gives. It gives a name, which is Nero Caesar, because they believe that the Antichrist was Caesar himself. And if you then take the Greek, morph it back into Hebrew, and count up the numbers, because every letter has a numerical value, then you either come up with either 616 or the more famous one, 666. So that's what it says along the top of the old logo that I have.
Oh, interesting. So I have another question, JJ. I go on investigations, and I've had experiences with the paranormal. And now my question is, how would I know if it's a demon I'm dealing with and not just maybe a spirit of a past, to someone else? How would I know the difference?
That is a great question. I can't really give you a truly definitive answer, but based upon my knowledge, because I am primarily an academic, but I can tell you a few warning signs. If the place experiences extreme temperature changes, that can be a sign. If you try to do a smudging, where if you try to burn some white sage or blue sage and it has little to zero effect, that can be a sign. If you put up religious iconography and you get an extremely negative reaction, that's also a sign. So yeah, I mean, it is really difficult to tell the two apart, but demons have never been human. They are a preternatural entity, and their effects are very, very different than the spirit world.
So I have a question, JJ, about demons themselves. So are demons a religious concept throughout all religions? Is it a specific religion? And let's say you're not religious at all, then would you even say demons exist? I guess I'm asking is, do they exist because of religion, or do they exist on some other type of field? I guess I don't know. I guess I don't know what I'm trying to ask. Am I making sense?
No, you are. It's a great question, and I would say that, you know, if something is real, it doesn't really care if you believe in it or not. So that would be first answer. But second answer is that, yes, these entities are primarily viewed through a religious lens. So if you come from, so not all Abrahamic traditions, but a lot of them have this kind of belief. Ancient Judaism had zero concept of a demon. Everything was just controlled through God. However, you know, after the temples were destroyed, and there can be a couple of different reasons that people ascribe to this, but there suddenly became a need to have an enemy for God, and people began questing to find that enemy. And a lot of different candidates came up. Azazel, Baal-zebub, or as we call it, Beelzebub, all the way down the line. And so you do find demons there after, you know, during the Second Temple period in Judaism. Christianity definitely has it, because we kind of inherited Zoroastrianism in terms of how they view demons, which is the religion that has the oldest written text of any religion in the world. And it has the most advanced dualism of any religion. In fact, many posit, and I kind of agree with that, is Judaism developed a dualism after the exile, and a lot of Jews mingled in with Zoroastrians. So, however, if you come to Islam, there are kind of demons, but they're jinn. And jinn are not necessarily evil. They are separate from humans, but you have good jinn, you have bad jinn. So yeah, it's, you know, there's a lot of different interpretations all the way across the line. I would say that, you know, Christianity's view is, you know, radically different than even if you go back to Mesopotamia, where, if you ever listen to Irvin Finkel, he's an amazing Assyriologist from the British Museum. But you know, he quite clearly demonstrates that there's a difference between demons in the ancient world and demons how we view them now, in the sense that you know, in Mesopotamia, whether you're dealing with the Sumerians or the Babylonians, they believed in gods and demons and in ghosts. And demons were not responsible for like possessing a body and taking over your will as we see it now. Rather, demons were just there to cause either natural havoc, natural disasters, or they could be the source of your migraine or your sudden illness in your body. And exorcists were there, and they actually kind of served as a medical corps. They would go in, they would diagnose the symptoms, they would go, yep, I think you've got a demon here. They would then perform some rituals, and then hopefully that would cleanse you.
Wow.
I have a question. I know it's a long-winded
no,
answer,
but that's crazy when you think about it. It's like almost like, you know, at-home care for demons. You know, if you're back in the day, if you thought you were possessed, the troops would come, do their thing, and leave, and hope that helped. That's crazy.
In fact, you've got different types of demons in Mesopotamia, which is really interesting. You've got, say, Pazuzu, who is a protector demon, and then you have his kind of ex-wife, Lamashtu, who would like sniff around at doorways trying to find either pregnant women or women who had just given birth so that she can then eat and kill the babies. And you actually find that same kind of symbolism in Ethiopia with a race of baby killing demons that are called the Shotalai. In fact, the Ethiopians love to make these protection scrolls that people wear around their neck that is meant to protect them from Shotalai and a whole host of other demonic hosts.
That's interesting, JJ. You were talking about the jinns, and I know they say the jinns were made from a smokeless fire.
Correct.
How were other demons made? How were they created? Are there stories about that?
Christianity has a pretty solid creation story in that angels are the servants of God. However, some angels happen to be led astray. In the book of Enoch, you have the watchers who were sent to watch over the generations of man. Not trying to be sexist, just using the terminology it used. And they saw how pretty the daughters of men were, and they decided to go down and take wives for themselves amongst them. And that kind of caused a schism along the angelic host. In Christianity, it was a war in heaven. And of course, a lot of Christianity's creation mythologies around demons have been kind of blurred by Milton. It's really kind of hard to distinguish what Milton said and then, what was actually believed beforehand. But yeah, I mean, those are just some of the ways that demons are there. But at the root, it was, something that was meant to belong to God, that are holy beings of the spirit that were never human, that have become fouled, and as a result they seek to foul and corrupt humanity.
So in Christianity, is the devil the top demon? Is, if there's a demon hierarchy, is the devil at the top? Is the devil a demon?
The devil is definitely, for Christianity, the devil is definitely a demon. If Judaism kind of settled upon a top evil, and then Christianity came along and settled on its own top evil. And most people would say, yep, it's always been Lucifer. That is our top demon, the light bearer. And that's not actually the way it worked. Or some people say, oh, it's Satan, but that really comes from the book of Job. And it's not Satan, it's Ha-Satan, which is the prosecutor. So it actually it's just the ultimate devil's advocate. It wasn't meant to be an enemy, but in the quest to find out, okay, who is the ultimate enemy of God, that was one of the contenders that came up. But yeah, in Christianity, the devil is definitely a demon. He ranks at the very top. The further you get along into Christianity, the more people begin to seek order and structure into hell in order to describe it and to understand it better. And during the Middle Ages, you had people trying to mirror the structure of heaven into the structure of hell. And because we had a ton of names that were still floating around, and people began to ascribe them, oh yeah, this is a prince, this is an archduke, blah blah blah. I don't really know how much you can take that into consideration when you're really looking at kind of like a hierarchy, but at least as far as we know, there's a top person and then there's all the rest of the rabble beneath.
Very, very
now I have a question, JJ. Do you find that demons, like from different cultures, let's say Native American and African, do they all have a very similar belief demon system? Does that make sense? Like a demon of, like you say, that eats babies. Do you find that across all cultures?
I wouldn't say all cultures. I am definitely not an ascriber to Joseph Campbell's universal mythos kind of concept. I mean, it's just a bad idea to begin with. I mean, there are commonalities into humankind, and I would say it's more chance than not if those, common experiences get ascribed into a religious context or not. I primarily look at Second Temple Judaism. That is what my, kind of educational background is in. I do also look at Catholicism because that's what I'm a Catholic. I converted into Catholicism. So I'm, very aware of those types of traditions. And the group of religious texts that I had studied the most was from the Ethiopic Orthodox Church. So, I'm very well versed in those. However, I haven't really gone too much further abroad in that area. So I can't really speak definitively on, tons of other cultures or religions. Even when we get into Islam, I'm on shaky ground because I never had the chance. The further along in education that you go, the narrower and narrower your scope is so that you can become an expert in a particular topic or suite of topics. So yeah, I wish I knew the answer to that.
So, JJ, I guess, from Christianity and like the movies that you see today with demons and possession and, evil entities and everything, are demons and I guess some of these quote unquote evil entities the same? I'm really not sure like where demons come from versus someone would say, oh, that's just an evil entity. I'm not sure what the difference would be.
So a demon, excuse me, a demon is a preternatural entity, never having been human. And they are former angels that now seek the ruination of God's creation. And at the top of that list is definitely humanity. Of course, Milton ascribed, vanity to be the primary driving cause for that. Whatever the cause may be, we really don't know. But they are after people. And the Catholic Church has a very definitive set of requirements that must be met before a person can be deemed possessed. And a possession is always done by a demon. It's hardly ever the devil. There's one primary exception to that. But yeah, I mean, their criteria is quite strict. You have to go through extensive medical examinations to make sure it is not a physical ailment. You have to go through quite severe mental examinations to make sure that it's not schizophrenia or bipolarism or whatever else the case may be. And if you have done that, then there are still some further considerations. Is the person that is possessed, do they know secret knowledge? Things in which they can never, ever possibly know.
Like speaking of like Latin or something.
Exactly. It could be a language. It could be, I can reach into a person's past and pull out information about them or their family members, which they would never know, etc. Are there extreme temperature, differentiations? Or is there levitation? In fact, one of the things that a priest has to do is to remove anything that is movable from a room, so that the bed can't levitate, dresser drawers can't go flying out and injuring people. There's been quite a few cases where priests have been knocked about because of an exorcism that is going on. So yeah, I mean, and it's only after all of these things have been verified and then the church gives its authority will the permission to do an exorcism ever proceed forward.
Now, JJ, do you know of any confirmed, documented cases of possession that you could share with us?
There is A phenomenal book written by a former Jesuit priest named Father Malachi Martin. Possession of the Devil. No, Hostage to the Devil, the possession and exorcism of 5 contemporary Americans. And there he goes through 5 individual cases, and he examines it both from the person's point of view that's being exorcised, the priest that conducts the exorcism, and then the entire exorcism itself. And at the end, he even goes through and does a lot of basic theological work around it. It's truly a phenomenal book. And that's really what kind of got me into all of this. So really in school, I was most interested in ancient languages and some of these really weird texts that come out between the Hebrew Bible and the Christian New Testament, which is called the pseudepigrapha, which from Latin just means false epitaph. But they're beautiful, they're amazing. And then I found Second Temple Judaism, which has all of these kind of anachronistic concepts that you don't find in previous versions of Judaism, that, you know, and that really kind of like shape the way that we view our modern world in a lot of fundamental aspects, which is just interesting. But in college, I ran across this book as part of a theological class that I was taking, and it gave me nightmares for about 6 months straight. But B, it was fascinating that it actually drove me to seek spiritual direction from the Jesuits. I actually thought about becoming a priest for a while. It had a really profound effect on me, and it still does, to be honest.
So, you know, demons are ancient. They've been around forever. But I guess my question is do new demons form, or are there just demons and that's it? So can new demons come around, I guess, be born, be created? Or is there just a certain number of demons and that's it since the beginning of time?
It's a great question, and honestly, there's just simply no way to know, because the source. If you tried to speak to a demon that was currently possessing an individual, could you ever trust what they say?
Good point.
No, I mean, in fact, talking to a demon is one of the worst things that you could ever do. It puts your own soul in jeopardy. So, I mean, theoretically, I mean, there have been many kind of modern interpretations that, yes, a truly evil person could, theoretically rise through the ranks and maybe become a demon. Maybe they become an avatar for a demon, where they're kind of like the intro of a demonic presence, and then they make way for a greater demon. That's actually one of the use cases that Malachi Martin points out in his book. But really, I have no idea. And I honestly, that's why I'm an academic. I don't mess with magic. I don't mess with investigations. I stay out of the middle plateau, as it's referred to. I love reading about this stuff. I love kind of squashing the tons of horrible information that you find out there. I speak to a lot of practicing demonologists because I find their work in the field fascinating. But yeah, honestly, I don't see how we could ever know the answer to that.
And we'll never know how many demons there may be.
According to Christianity, it was a third that went to war against God. And, we have no, it's the old question of how many angels can fit in the pin of a head.
You have to believe in angels, first of all.
Yeah, you would have to believe in angels to believe in demons, right?
Oh, and angels are so vastly different than what we think they are.
And how so? Give us a idea of how they're vastly different from what most people believe them to be.
So, if you picture a cherubim, most people will think, oh, a baby with wings that, looks at flowers and, basks in sunlight. The way that the cherubim were at least initially envisioned in ancient Judaism is that they are based off from either the Lamassu from Babylonian times or the Sphinx from Egypt, in that they had 4 legs, that of a beast, whether it would be a lion or a bull or something else, we don't know, a head of a human with wings. And their primary job was to guard the throne of God. In fact, in some cases, they were the throne of God. And you actually find that kind of realized in Ezekiel. And then you have the seraphim, which literally means burning ones in Hebrew. But, and you find the only description of them in Isaiah 6, where it says, they have 6 wings, 2 they cover their face, 2 they cover their feet, and with 2 they fly. But that's really the end of it, besides them singing the Hosanna. However, if you look at all of the other references to seraphim or seraph in the Hebrew Bible, you actually find it referring to fiery flying snakes. And in fact, there are archaeological records of motifs of these fiery serpents that denote angels. So these seraphim were actually not just, flying around God singing his praises. They were probably fiery serpents that had 6 wings, that had to use 4 of them to cover itself in order to protect itself from the glory of God. Because as a former professor of mine always said, if you ever meet God, you're in for a really bad day.
Something's going on.
Exactly.
Wow. That is,
well, that's a big difference between
from what we always know them to look like.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then some people do posit there's a third type of angel that was described in the Hebrew Bible called Ophanim, which are the wheels. However, I actually have an entire episode about this, saying how that's probably not the case, and that they're really just more a part of the cherubim. But yeah, in Ezekiel, he has an entirely radical interpretation of what the cherubim are. And he kind of like transfigurizes them into a humanoid with 4 heads, 4 wings, and they become a literal chariot in which God rides around in. And then
they talk about a wheel within a wheel and all that?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, those are the Ophanim. And then in Revelation, you have all 3 of those condensed down into one entity that just has, a whole bunch of eyes all the way around it. And they form the throne of God, and they sing the Hosanna. So yeah, Revelation just kind of made a mess of everything.
Wow.
That is really, really fascinating. We could talk all day about angels and demons, and we've had people come on the show that say they see angels and they communicate with angels, and then we've had people come on the show that say they've performed exorcisms and possessions and everything. But I'm curious, it seems like more people are more apt to say that they see angels than see demons. Obviously, it seems like that would be the more positive. But do you think that people are really seeing angels, or do you think maybe it's something else?
Well, you actually see that same split, not just in people that say that they see angels versus demons, but you see the same thing even in near-death experiences. The overwhelming amount of cases, like 97%, as reported by the Endorf Institute, 97% of people say that they see heaven, whereas you have 3% that say they saw hell. And some of these accounts are just pure terror. Whether people actually see angels or demons, I don't know. You have, like, when it comes to the demonic, at least, and this is, I'm much more familiar with, I don't know what that says about me, but you actually have people, there are two different kind of states. If a demon shows interest in you, yes, you can go, there can be the extreme of a possession. There can be a further extreme of a perfect possession, and that's where a person willingly enters into a demonic pact with a demon. But then you also have the precursor to that, which is demonic obsession, and that's where you're experiencing the negative effects of a demonic presence in one way, shape, or form.
JJ, if you could tell our listeners one book that you could recommend to get them started on this knowledge about demonology, what would you recommend?
If you're looking for modern interpretations of it, I would definitely recommend Hostage to the Devil by Malachi Martin. It's interesting. I actually point out a few flaws because the man was brilliant. However, he's not without controversy by any means of the word. There's a few other practicing exorcists from the Catholic Church that have gone public, because usually they remain private to protect themselves and the diocese they work for. Listening to any of their experiences is really, very interesting. If you're looking for more of a ancient take, I would definitely recommend just reading the source material. So First Enoch is definitely a good place to start on that front. Or if you want to go even more ancient and look at Babylonia, any of the works by Irvin Finkel is phenomenal. And then there's a relatively recent book that came out from Brill, which is one of the best academic publishing houses out there. It's called Psalm 91 and Demonic Menace, I believe that last word is. Tremendously expensive though. It's like $175 US. So wouldn't recommend going that route unless you really, really want to read it. But it's a phenomenal piece of academic examinations and writings.
JJ, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and being a part of that, some crazy shit. If people want to listen to your podcast, what's the name of it? And I know you're probably on all platforms, yes?
I am, yeah. You can go to southerndemonology.com. That's the website. It has all episodes on it. It lists listen links to every preferred platform, whether it's Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, whatever it may be. But you can contact me there as well. We have a Discord group, we have a Patreon, we have all this stuff. So you can always contact us if you have specific questions. But otherwise, all of our episodes are there, and we've been doing this since 2017. So we have a lot of different topics that we cover.
Yeah, congratulations. 2017, that's a long time.
It's longer than which I thought would be possible.
Yeah, that's kind of like the way we feel about our show.
I know that.
No, but I would like to invite you back, JJ. I'm sure me and Kelly can just sit and, bend your
I would
ear all
love
day.
that. It's been such a pleasure getting to meet y'all and talk with you. I really appreciate the chance coming on and, talk about this stuff, because obviously I can talk about it forever. So.
And we can ask you a bunch of questions about it as well. So we would love to have you come back. Thank you so much for being on today's show, though.
Oh, thank y'all. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. That was a lot of information.
That's a lot of information.
Yeah, and it's funny. I like when we have guests because they come on and they're like he's talking about demons, and people like me go out and investigate and stuff and not really pay attention about demons and stuff like that or whatever. And it's like, you really need to, because they're bad dudes.
Well, it's interesting that this is a whole study, right? I mean, it's part of theology, right? Learning about demons and just all the information, but he did preface that he does it from the academic side. Right. Which is which to me is a lot safer than going out and doing investigations and doing exorcisms and all that good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Reading and learning, but I really enjoyed talking to him. He had a lot of information.
Yeah, that was cool. And knowledge is never a bad thing. Knowledge is power. And you could protect, with a little bit of knowledge, you might be able to protect yourself out there when you're looking for Casper and it's not Casper.
Well, you don't have to worry about me because I'm not looking for Casper. Not looking. I'm good. Like I said, people can come on and tell us all about it. You yourself can go out there and investigate. But me, Kelly, I am good. I will just talk about it.
Well, that's cool. We need, I'm kind of in between. I'll go do the kind of scary investigations, I don't want to get too crazy.
That's funny.
And then I'll come and talk about it.
But if this is a topic that interests you, JJ, like you said, has his own podcast. It's called Southern Demonology, and you can find it wherever you get your podcast. Let's do some random bullshit.
All right. We had talked about this. Okay. I thought we'd try something new on random bullshit. You always say, you don't know about different subjects. And it's funny because I know a lot about these different things, but it's not like I'm going to say, hey, Kelly, do you want to talk about, even though we do talk about things, I just don't think to say stuff like that. Right. So I thought what we might try is you hit me with some random bullshit you want to know about, whatever. And I will tell you what I know from my years of being exposed to this stuff. Okay, now granted, I'm not an expert, so I can't cite where I've seen this stuff. I probably read it or saw a documentary or something. Okay, but I will give you what knowledge I have, and then you, being like Oracle and Batman, will get on the internet and see how close I am.
Okay, all right. So I've got one for you now, and it's one that we've actually already talked about. And I don't know if there's any research behind this, but this is just the way my brain works. So this will give you an insight to my brain.
All right, be careful, people. I see this all the time.
We had talked about ghosts and stuff, right? So this was my question, all right? I live in Spain. I speak Spanish. I die. When I come back as a ghost, do I haunt in Spanish, or can I now speak whatever language I want? Because every ghost movie I've ever seen, if the ghost does speak, the ghost speaks English. So are all ghosts fluent in English, or are all ghosts fluent in all languages? I think that's a very good, legit question. Go, James.
That is a good, legit question, and we talked about this. And this is my theory on this. Okay, we talked about ghosts being transcendental, multi-dimensional. Okay, if you could move from dimension to dimension, be here or there, you can, in my opinion, speak any language you want. Okay, but I would assume, all right, from what I've known, because the Japanese people are heavily believe in this stuff. I'm sure they're speaking Japanese to them, right? Spanish, go speak Spanish. But I would think that they could communicate in any language.
Okay, I'll buy that.
Did we talk about this, about animals being bilingual?
Well, I just said, if you have a dog, let's say in Spain again, I like Spain. So let's say you have a dog in Spain, you train that dog. When you speak to that dog, it's in Spanish.
Correct.
You now give the dog to your American cousin who brings the dog home. And if he tells the dog to sit in English, will the dog sit? will the dog understand English or does the dog understand Spanish? Are dogs bilingual?
And this was my answer on this. I believe dogs are bilingual because they also speak canine. I believe dogs can speak canine to each other.
So when dogs are out in the neighborhood barking, they're speaking to one another?
Yes.
They're not barking for the sound of the barking. They're communicating is what you're saying.
Oh, I don't know. They may be singing.
I'm just saying.
Sing a lot.
I do sing a lot, but singing song is another way of communicating. So when a dog barks and makes it sound, that's communication to another dog who understands what that dog is saying.
I believe so.
Would that go for any animals, sir? Yes.
Well, I'm not sure if all animals are intelligent enough to understand human communication, but I believe they could all communicate on their own level.
That's what I'm saying. All animals have some form of communication and can communicate with one another.
I believe so. I mean, there's probably science that says no, this amoeba doesn't have the brain, whatever, too. But I think it's on some basic level.
That's kind of cool. See, and that, my friend, is random bullshit.
That was some random bullshit, but it wasn't just bullshit, people.
No, but it was random just because, I mean, that's just the way my brain works. If I go to Japan and I go to a haunted hotel and a ghost haunts me, God, is that ghost going to speak Japanese to me? Because I'm not going to understand it.
Well, you're going to understand if you hear some, Japanese voice, going, whatever they're going to say in Japanese. That's going to scare the hell out of you.
Well, yes, it will. But it would be nice to know what they were saying. I'm just saying.
If you could always say konnichiwa. That's what's up.
Yeah,
more random bullshit.
You can go to our website, which is www.thatsomecrazyshitpodcast.com. Check out all of our social media. That's where you can listen to past episodes as well. The podcast is available pretty much on all platforms wherever you get your podcast.
Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
Very
and
cool.
Next week, guess what?
We're going to have another guest.
James, you are getting the hang of this.
I am. I'm catching on, people.
You're catching on.
So, is it that time?
It's that time.
Until next time, people, keep your minds open.